I'm going to talk tonight about anger, and I'm going to share a lot of my story here. And my hope is that some of what I share is that you're going to find something to connect with in it. And and I believe that you will, because I think we have all, shared experiences. Um, and I think that I don't think my experience is that unique to anybody else's. So I think that there will be things for you to connect in, and I just encourage you, as you listen to, to what I share, that you'll maybe find something that, where you say, oh yeah, that reminds me of this experience in my life, and how I dealt with it well, or didn't deal with it well. So over the past few weeks, since my retirement or since my going on disability, I have had a couple of experiences that have caused me to stop and to think about how I am doing during this season of transition, how I'm doing during this moving from working full time and then entering into retirement. And one of those is this one. I had to have a CT scan last week. And part of the CT scan is I have to have the CT scan with contrast. And before you can have the CT scan, you have to go and get this special drink, Omni, that you have to drink before you have the CT scan. And I walked into the place to get my Omni. And when I walked in, the nurses who were just supposed to hand me my Omni so I could leave. I mean, I'm talking, this should be a 3-minute conversation where I request the Omni. Then they say, have you had this before? Yes. Are you allergic to shellfish and to dye? No, I'm not. Okay, here's the Omni. Like, that's the length of time that should take. It took me over 25 minutes to get the Omni. And during those 25 minutes, I found myself getting extremely impatient. And then I felt inside of myself just boiling up inside of me, like this anger at the situation, anger at these individuals who were not doing their job. And the longer it went on, the angrier I got. And I recognized it in the moment, but I couldn't stop it. I don't know if you've ever been angry like that, like where you recognize, okay, I know I'm angry. I know it's foolishness for me to be angry here, but yet I can't, for some reason, I can't reel myself in. I can't reel myself back. I can't count to 10 and settle myself down. The anxiety that is inside of me, it's there, and it needs to get expressed. So I walked across this room, and I found another nurse, and I pleaded my case with this other nurse. Hey, all I'm here to do is get my Omni, and she said, well, let me go see if I can help. Well, she walked across, and she was back in the room for about 5 minutes, and she came out. She goes, there's nothing I can do. You're going to have to wait until they come out and help you. It's like, oh, the whole thing was just crazy. And I just felt this all inside of me. And I was really disappointed in myself. And driving home from there, all I kept on asking myself was, why were you so frustrated? Why were you angry? I mean, it's not like I had anywhere else to go. I am retired. I could have sat there for the entire rest of the day, and I didn't have anything else to do. I could have sat there for the rest of the day and not missed another appointment. And yet, I was angry. And so at first I started to feel, just simply disappointed in myself and in my lack of self-control, in my inability to reel back in my anger, in my lack of maturity. I mean, I'm 53 years old. You think I would be able to manage this better, but I could not. I did not at that time. And the more I sat with the questions, the more I came to understand that my frustration and my anger was pointing to something else. And that it had nothing to do, my anger, my frustration, the emotions that I was feeling there had nothing to do with my quest to get Omni. It had to do with the fact that I was mourning. And, July 16th, I started to fill out the paperwork, filing for disability. It was approved in 10 days, which is just ridiculous. And so all of a sudden, I went from fully functioning, working, having my job, having my identity, having everything, knowing who I was, knowing what I did, and all of that. And to all of a sudden, and August 20th was my last Sunday at church. And we got done with church, and I walked out the door, locked my office, and that was it. And it was like, between that time frame, like my identity was taken away from me. I mean, that's not true, but that's what it felt like, right? And so there was a piece of mourning. And for the last 5 years, since I've been diagnosed, I have moved as if my cancer was background noise. I just kept doing everything that I've always done, and my cancer was background noise to life. And now all of a sudden, it's no longer background noise, because now, because of the illness, I am no longer able to do that which I want to do, which is to serve as pastor. And all of a sudden, I just started laughing. I was in my shop one day after all this went down, and I just started laughing to myself, going, you're not angry at the nurse. You're not angry that they didn't get you the Omni. You're not frustrated with any of that. What you are is frustrated with life. And you're unhappy with the situation that you find yourself in. And these poor people just happen to be in the way. And they happen to be the trigger. I felt hopeless. And sure, I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I wanted. I have all this free time, but I cannot do that which I enjoyed the most. I can't. I'm not. I've lost the community that I supported, and the community that supported me. And on the surface, I would talk with people. Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing great. This, that, and the other. But the truth was, no. There was something inside that wasn't right, and it expressed itself in the anger that showed up in that doctor's office when I was going there to get the Omni. And so that anger helped me to see that there were bigger things going on in my world. And if we're honest, our anger rarely has to do only with what other people do to us. You know, a lot of times we think about anger and, well, Bob did this to me, and so I'm angry. Or Nick did this, Nick caused this to happen, and so that makes me angry. And if we're honest, so often our anger has very little to do with what is done to us. And our anger is a result of feelings that we have about ourselves, about the world, about the future. And someone or something just happens to be the trigger that sets off that anger. And that poor nurse who got in the way, she received a little bit of the brunt of that anger. And so I got to thinking, so what are we supposed to do when we find ourselves in a place like this? And I think one of the first things that I walked away with was to say, we need to find ways to avoid the things that cause our anger. And I recognize that that is much easier in some situations than others, right? But in my situation, for example, and this was very simple for me. When I got done with my CT scan, I have built a relationship over the past 5 years with the people who do my CT scans. And I looked at them and I said, look, I'm going to be here in 3 months. And they said, yeah, you'll be back in 3 months. I said, how about giving me the Omni for the next scan today? And they just laughed and they go, well, why would you want that? And I explained to them what happened. And they went and they got me my Omni for my next scan as I was walking out the door. And so it's like, you know what? I'm not going to put myself in that situation where I'm going to be frustrated again. I'm going to eliminate that situation. And I think that one of the other things that we can do is to name the struggle. And, when I was down in my basement, down in the shop, and I realized that my frustration with the people at the doctor's office had more to do with my anger at what was going on in my life rather than what was going on with those nurses in the doctor's office. One of the first things I did was walk upstairs and talk to Nancy. I walked upstairs and I said, remember when I told you about what happened in the doctor's office? And she goes, yep. I don't think that had anything to do with what was going on in the doctor's office. I think that had everything to do with what's going on in my life. And I named it. And surprise, surprise, she agreed with me. She said, well, I think that's probably right. And naming it, naming the struggle, I think is an important thing. And over the past few days, I've been drawn to a passage of scripture. It's from Galatians chapter 5. It's many of you are familiar with it, but Paul is talking about the fruit of the Spirit. And he says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And I found myself reflecting on that and praying for the fruit of the Spirit to be evident in my life, even in the midst of a season of disruption and a season of turmoil. Because seasons of disruption and seasons of turmoil come. and they're going to continually come. This just happens to be the one that I find myself in right now. And there'll be another one. There have been seasons of disruption and turmoil before. And as long as I'm alive, they're going to continue to come. But the challenge is to always allow the Spirit of God to be alive and well and working in the midst of those seasons of disruption and of turmoil. And the Spirit of God looks like peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. And as I think about the way I moved in that doctor's office, none of that was evident there. And I want that to be evident. And I want that to show, even in the midst of difficult times. Even whenever deep inside my spirit, there may be anger or there may be frustration. I want that fruit of the Spirit to win out. And I want that to show, even as I process through and deal with all the other stuff that's going on in my world.